Um, uh, she was a DCM and she was running her meeting, and I thought, oh, she knows how to do this. This is pretty cool. And so I've just kind of paid attention, and yeah, she's been great in service. That's how I know her, just watching her in service. I'm curious about her story, and so I'm excited to hear it. I only know her in service, but if you don't know, Courtney currently serves as our alternate delegate. So happy to hear her. Come on up.
Setting the timer for myself. All right. Hi, my name's Courtney. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Courtney.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks, Austri, for asking me. And Haley, thanks for coming. Fantastic job. So it's fun to hear people's stories, like, out of context. Yeah, so it was interesting. Today I was downtown, I was walking down the street, and I realized, like, I was looking people in the eye. I was walking like I wasn't, like, hunched over and scared kind of deal. I was just walking down the street with, like, a little bit of confidence kind of deal. And I had gotten sober. Actually, I'm living in the same place I got sober like 16 years ago. And I remember when I was still drinking, walking down that, like, exact same street with my eyes down, trying to hide from the world. I'm trying to avoid, like I drank and dashed from that place, and I stole something from that place, and, like, the guilt and the shame that just rolled around inside of me. And today I was walking down the street, like, carefree, and I was like, gosh, like, all I wanted to do is not drink. And, like, today I can show up as a human in the world and not be ashamed of my behavior. And the way I'm living today, those are all those things that there's so many gifts of recovery I've gotten that I didn't want to hear about when I first got here. Like, I'm so grateful. Shut up. No, I'm not grateful. I'll never say I'm a grateful alcoholic. All those things, right? But today I'm really grateful for the life I have and the gifts I've been given and the way I've learned to live life. Because that's what I didn't get was the user manual of life. And I was always that really shy people pleaser person who I just wanted to have you like me, and I didn't want to say anything that would make you not like me, right? So I made 99% of my decisions based on fear. It was like, would this be okay? Is this the right answer? Is this the wrong answer? What if I say something you like, but what if I say something you don't like? Like, it was all just fear, and it was so exhausting. And that's how my drinking was, right? Like, some friends have heard the story, but, like, I didn't drink until late in high school. And I didn't drink late into high school because I had a girlfriend who was proud of me for not drinking because I hung out with all the kids that did. And she said, I'll kick your butt if you drink. And so I took that to heart. I was like, all right, well, I'm not drinking. Connie won't like me. And so I didn't. And I was prepping for graduation because I decided I was going to drink. And it was the weekend before graduation, so you had to take the dry run of drinking, right? And so, but I didn't want anybody to see me drinking, but I was practicing drinking. So that was all confusing. That sets it up bad. And so I'm stealing drinks. Well, actually, my best friend and I, like, scurrying to the bathroom, and she handed me a Zima. Everybody knows that. It was, like, so disgusting. I'd drink it as fast as I could, and I'd go back out and pretend like nothing was different. It's all good. I'm just Courtney, and, like, that doesn't go well because you drink, I don't even know how many of those. And, like, it starts to get dark, and I, like, gray, fuzzy, woke up throwing up in my home, which I don't know how I got there. But, yeah, and that was, like, my practice run, right? Like, me hiding in a bathroom drinking. And, and my last drink was me so paranoid and scared that anyone's going to see him drinking, because at this point I was trying to get sober, that I just got on a run and had just gotten home, and I remembered I had that pint of vodka hidden. So I take that warm pint of vodka and I scurry into the bathroom and I wash out a shampoo bottle and I pour it in there, and I sneak back in and out of the bathroom for the rest of the day, like nursing vodka out of, like, a Fructis shampoo bottle. And it was disgusting. Disgusting. And that's how I lived, like, hiding, stealing, feeling guilty about my behavior. And so my drinking was full circle, like, in a bathroom, in the beginning and the end. And I had no reason, quote unquote reason, like, nothing I could blame my alcoholism on, right? Like I grew up in a great family. My parents were married for, 39 years, and just that normal family. I didn't have a ton, but I had what I needed. And and so I was looking for something to blame, but I couldn't blame that, right? But I do know, like I always had this hole, this God-sized hole inside me, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't have a name for it. And I would remember laying in bed at night as a kid, like willing some sort of connection to something. I just knew there was something that needed to fill this hole inside of me, and I could never make it happen. And that's what I was looking for in friendships, right? And looking for in relationships and in accomplishments and, all those things. And it just didn't work. And I tried doing that also through, I tried going to church in Young Life, and I did some of that too. And I met some really great people and things, but I was going to college. And so I took God and I put God on a shelf and said, nice, I'll come back to you when I grow up, but I'm going to do this college thing. I'm going to run around. I'm going to do what you're supposed to do in college. I'm an excuse to binge drink, right? And at that point, I didn't even realize I needed an excuse for the way that I was going to be drinking, but I did. And but I knew something was like, even when I was young, that God-sized hole I was trying to fill, and this sneaky behavior and feeling uncomfortable in my skin, and that, like, I would steal when I was young. Like I had these alcoholic behaviors that I didn't know they were alcoholic behaviors until I got here. Like I was stealing stuff from people. I remember watching this movie. It's like Meg Ryan was it was like something of Wine and Roses or something. She's an alcoholic in the movie. And I remember where I was sitting in my downstairs, and I remember when she took a bottle of vodka, like she's supposed to be sober or something. She's like, she was in a own closet. She starts pounding this bottle of vodka in the relief. And I was like, yes, I relate to that. And I was probably like 10 or 12 years old. And so I've had something I knew I needed to fix inside of me. And so I go off to college, and it's encouraged, drinking's encouraged, X, Y, and Z. I'm a brand new drinker. So there's the testing of all that stuff that just doesn't go well. But I found that, that it worked. It just took a little bit of the edge off. I started at a point where I started taking mixed drinks class because class was easier and more entertaining. And I'd go for walks around the campus with my girlfriend at night at midnight, drinking on a college campus, wandering around. That's super smart. But all of these things I did, and it went from people asking me to go out with them and hang out with them and giving me drinks to slowly people started taking them from me, maybe putting them aside. Why don't you wait a little bit? Why don't you have a glass of water, Courtney? And I met my now husband when I was in college, and that's the difference between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic, right? We partied and we drank together exactly the same. And sometimes he enjoyed it more than I did. But at one point, it even came from him hiding drinks from me. And something just changed. I was an alcoholic from the beginning or not, I don't know. I mean, my first experience is a little shady. You black out your first time, but whatever. And, he started hiding them from me. And then we do the game planning. Right? You're only going to take 6 beers. You're only going to take a few shots. You're only going to, the games that we play to try and control our drinking. And it was just so confusing because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what alcoholism was. Neither did he, neither did my friends who were, 20. And it was just confusing, but I'd, pass out. They'd write the time 7:03 on my hand or something. And they'd go to the bars, and I'd come back, and I'd wake up when they came home at 2 a.m. and I accidentally missed everything. Or the nights where I became a blackout drinker very much at the end. But because I didn't want you to know I blacked out, I did this game where I'd ask different people questions. I'd ask you one question, and you one, and you one, and you one, and I'd piece together the night so that everybody thought I remembered what was going on. People would laugh, oh my gosh, you were so funny. And I had that cringe inside because, again, I just knew something was wrong. I knew the way I was drinking while everybody else was doing some of the same things, it just didn't sit right with me. And I was stealing booze and all that good stuff because apparently I'm a thief. I don't know if anybody realized that when they got sober. I wrote my 8-step list. I thought I was this very genuinely nice, caring, altruistic person. Half of my amends were financial amends from the stuff I stole. I had no idea. So that was an eye-opening experience. I'm like, oh wow, I'm a thief. I'm a liar. I'm a liar, cheater, and thief. I think I mentioned somewhere in the book. And you know, and I get engaged and I get married, and I'm still this budding alcoholic who has no idea why her drinking is out of control, and neither does, you know, my husband. And one of the biggest amends, or most, I don't know, one of the big amends I had to make was to my husband, right? And it's that whole, we're game planning the wedding, and I'm only gonna have one glass, and we're gonna get in the car. We're in Wenatchee, where I grew up, and we're gonna drive to Seattle and catch a plane to Mexico. And I have that one glass of wine. We're each only having one wine. He only has one. But then I remember having another, and then I remember taking a wine bottle and chugging it, and like that's the last thing I remember. So I don't remember the second half of my wedding. And I came to, we're driving. Apparently, I got in the car and I changed and everything. And I'm talking to my sister and her boyfriend in the back seat, but they're not there. They're not there. And at this point, you know, I'm making things up and hallucinating, and the cringe my husband must have felt, knowing that, like, wow, what did I sign up for? What did I get myself into? And you know, what's amazing is, like, through the program and through recovery, like, we're at this point where after a lot of work, like, we can talk about our wedding and think about it fondly. We can look at pictures and we can laugh about it. Like, we can sometimes, even in a weird way, like, kind of laugh about, like, my behavior, because a lot of, like, all that's been restored, right? And that's only through recovery. And it took a long time to rebuild that trust. And so, you know, so I'm an alcoholic. I'm new in my career. I'm in this job as a recruiter that's essentially a sales job, right? So you put this people pleaser, perfectionist, whatever, no one with any life skills in a sales job like that. That drove me into the ground quickly. And it went from, you know, drinking on the weekends to drinking at night to starting to drinking at work. And I was like, well, if I can have wine on a Friday with coworkers at 4 p.m., why can't I have it on my own at 4 p.m. on a Thursday, and then 3, and then 2 on a Monday? And then, you know, I'm drinking around the clock. And that's how I drank at the end, was around the clock. And I was sick if I didn't drink. And I would, you know, pour in vodka into vodka's my love. That was my deal. And, you know, in the end, it's like warm vodka hidden somewhere that I, you know, just pull out and have to steal. It wasn't the good stuff either, right? You kind of go down the shelves at that point. And I was really sick. And I got caught drinking at work, and they sent me to treatment, you know. And that was my first introduction to alcoholism. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know that was like there was this physical aspect to it, and that it took some pressure off, knowing that maybe it wasn't my willpower. Maybe it wasn't just me being this terrible person. And so I got some great education, right? And I left treatment with a mind full of education, but I didn't understand how cunning, baffling, and powerful this was. I didn't understand what it looked like to rearrange my life to support sobriety. And, you know, about day 60 or something, I ended up drinking again, and then was stealing from my employer and all this stuff. And I started drinking and got fired again. And my husband didn't know what to do with me at that point, because he'd come home and he'd find me drunk at noon, and he had taken my ID and my credit card and anything, any access to money, but he'd come home and find me drunk. And I, you know, I was stealing from the liquor store. I did this thing because I look young and innocent, or at the time I looked very young and innocent. So I'd take a Nordstrom's bag and I'd put a towel in it, because anyone who shops at Nordstrom's isn't an alcoholic. So I would take this, and then I'd go down to the liquor store and I'd like sneak a fifth and put it in my bag, and I'd walk out, because I'm like, you know, and I dress halfway nice. And so, like, who would expect? So it's like these just the things we do for alcohol, right? And so he can't take it, and he sends me back home to Wenatchee to move in with my parents again. And I'm 25 and I'm married, living in the big city, and I get sent home to Wenatchee to live with my parents. And it was, you know, some of that ego deflation that we need to go through, right? And I didn't get sober immediately there, because I knew I was an alcoholic, and they didn't know my tricks yet. They didn't know what I would do for alcohol. So my mom would drop me off at a meeting, and I'd like go in and then leave and walk down the store to the convenience store and buy booze and come back. And you know, and my last drink was me and my girlfriend. Like, she came back from California to kick her coke habit, and I was there to get sober too. And so we had a grand plan of going to Mexico. So we're going to drive to Mexico. We're going to swing by. We're going to see her ex-boyfriend that she's still in love with. And then we're going to go by her dealer in California. And then we're going to go, because what I want to do is I want to drink on a beach every day. That's what I want to do. And I remember where I was when I made the decision to leave family, friends, husband, everything behind, so I could drink every day on a beach. And for me, that was where the progression came. It wasn't getting fired. It wasn't having to go to treatment. It wasn't that. It was just like what I was willing to do, what I was willing to give up so I could drink every day on the beach. And it didn't happen. We didn't get far. Her current boyfriend, like, she was weird on the phone. I was drunk in the car. I don't know. But he reported our car stolen to the state police. And we got to like Moses Lake, if anybody knows where that is. It's like a couple hours away. I don't know why. I don't know what she said, but for some reason he knew we were up to no good. And so we stayed there, and we're like, we pull over and get a hotel, and like somehow the hotel people convince us to give her keys to him. Like, we were just a mess. And what I do know is I woke up the next morning and we went out into the lobby, and my mom's sitting there reading a book. I don't know how she found us, but that was like the worst walk of shame I've ever done. And this whole time I'm going to meetings because I know I don't want to drink anymore. I know I'm an alcoholic. I just don't know how to stop and stay stopped. And I'm grateful that you let me keep coming back, right? That's the beauty of this. I had on my lunch break when I was still working, like, I'd take some booze and pour it in a pop, and I'd go and I'd sit in the meeting and I'd drink in my suit. So it looks like I'm not an alcoholic, but I'm in an AA meeting. But I would, because I couldn't not drink. And I appreciate it. Like, I love everyone in the room when they come in a little loaded or smelling a booze or whatever. It's just like, welcome aboard. I get it. And so I'm still going to meetings, and I have a sponsor, and I don't know. I know something's got to change, right? And I remember when the scales tipped a little bit. Like, I was 51% afraid of continuing to live how I did. 49%, like, I'm going to say that wrong. Essentially, I was more afraid of continuing what I was doing than having to be honest and do this program. And before, it had just been that 51-49 split, and it flipped just a little. And so I started doing everything that was suggested, like, at the same time. Because I was doing pieces of this, right? I had a sponsor in a service position, or I was doing the steps, or, I was doing pieces and parts. And I didn't realize that you need to, like, get a service position, a home group, a sponsor, work the steps, and do fellowship. And I started doing all of those things at the same time, and I was able to stay sober. Because I was told that, like, alcoholism is like this little flame inside, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds until I have to drink. If I pour enough AA on it, like, eventually that flame is going to go out. And that's what I did. Like, I just kept coming back because I was crying and drinking at the end because I didn't want to do it anymore, and I didn't know how not to. And so I'm drinking, and I end up going. I'm still going to AA, and I'm starting to get a little time under my belt. Right. And I'm starting to feel a little bit better about the way I'm showing up, because I'm not showing up like an alcoholic, and I gain a little bit of self-worth, like those building blocks going on. Maybe I do deserve some sobriety. Maybe I deserve some freedom from the self-hatred and the shame and the guilt. And that happened, like, those building blocks were going through because of the steps and being of service. And I learned how to be able to have a conversation by being a closer. Right? Because it gave me a purpose and a reason for being at a meeting. Like, I was able to own my space because you told me I needed to stick around and put away chairs. So I was able to be like, oh no, I'm on mission. Like, I'm supposed to be here, right? You can't kick me out. I'm supposed to be putting chairs away. And then I got to get to know you, and I got to have a conversation, and I learned to get to know people in my home group. And then, then I was coffee maker and opener and greeter and all of those things. And at one point they didn't have a GSR, and didn't know what in the world that was. All I knew is that there was this thing in Idaho that they were going to every year called an assembly. Whatever, my home groups said I could go with a couple women who were going for some other groups. And so these women who were in this general service thing, and I didn't know what general service was, were trucking me around. We're going to roundups and conventions and retreats, and we're listening to speaker CDs, to and from everything. And so I just got this foundation built of service that I'm so grateful for today. And I didn't know that I fell in with these women, which was just amazing. And so I go to this assembly thing, and all I remember is the feeling in the room and the love and the passion for Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't remember what was talked about or any of that. But I remember this next level of passion for the program. And people did it respectfully at the mic with each other, or more respectfully than I had seen things done in life before. And that I'll always carry that feeling. And since then, I've always been in some form of service or general service. And it's been the bright spot in my recovery, right? When all else fails, I have to show up somewhere. I have to have a service position. it keeps me, that next time from picking up. And now today I have a deep sense of like respect and gratitude for Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's why I continue serving, because of what it gave me and what those two women like picking me up and carrying me along. And I was at PRASA, the Pacific Region Alcoholics Anonymous Service Assembly last month with a couple, 40 of our closest friends from Western Washington. And there was a woman from Eastern Washington there that knew one of those women, that sponsored one of those women. And we're both in the same service position right now. And so we got to take a picture together, and we got to text it to Joanne. And I got to say, yet again, thank you. And I let her know that whenever I share, she comes up. And so it's cool in the way that we don't know how we're going to impact people's lives, right? Like the person sitting next to you in the meeting that you reach your hand out to, or that you say, no, you should be closer, help me pick up these chairs. Like we don't know the impact we're going to have on people's sobriety. And so I'm getting some time under my belt, and I'm becoming very respectful of my alcoholic. So now it's not like I just want to leave and go back to Seattle. It's like, oh, I'm scared, right? This thing's cunning, baffling, and powerful. And it wasn't until about probably, almost a year in Wenatchee that I moved back to Seattle. And I knew I needed to get a home group and a service position immediately, or else I know by the way I drink and the way my mind works, I would again. And so I did, and Surrender at Seven's my home group. It's a women's meeting, and it still is today. And I'm going through life. I get a job, I'm working, and I'm at a company where they're doing a bunch of layoffs at Washington Mutual. If anybody remembers that company, I was there. I'm getting laid off with 5,000 of my closest friends, and I remember being okay with it. I call my sponsor, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like, I'm not doing something right in recovery. Something's wrong with my program. Like, I'm not freaking out like everybody else is. And she's like, you're matching calamity with serenity. Like, you are doing the program. That's the deal. I'm just showing up every day and doing the next indicated thing. And it's so it's like some of those little light bulbs of like, oh, this is working, and this is how it works. And I knew that I had to make more time in my life for recovery, else I was going to drink again. And so, I'm really grateful today that my husband also has a deep respect for Alcoholics Anonymous, because he's like, go to a meeting, go do your service thing, whatever, because he knows when I'm not sober. And so he's very grateful for AA too. And we were walking down the street on vacation a few years ago, and like out of the blue, he was like, if I could push a button and make you not an alcoholic, I wouldn't do it. And he's like, because Alcoholics Anonymous has made our relationship better than it ever would have been. And I was like, wow, from being that lower companion, that person who was always in trouble, who was always the loose cannon, who sometimes you couldn't take somewhere and you had to leave him at home. Like for him to think that like he wouldn't not go through that again because of where I'm at today, where he's at today, and where our relationship's at. And through osmosis, like he sees what I do, and he's not an alcoholic, but he's incorporated some things into life that he's seen have made me happy. And the problem is that like he knows a lot about this, because I wish I could remember what he said the other day, but I was doing something. I don't know, spinning on something or complaining or whatever, and like he spouted some AA stuff back in, and it was just what? And like he sounded like my sponsor. Like great. So it made me laugh. So those are the things that like all I wanted to do was not drink. And today, like I have these, all of these things in life that are amazing, including like, a marriage that went through the ringer. And today, today it's probably better than it ever would have been. And I know if I wasn't an alcoholic, like life would be fine, right? I would have, gone around friends, gone out to bars, done the deal. But what I know I would have missed was getting to know myself in a different way, learning what I like and what I don't like. What I value and what I don't value. I've gotten like this relationship with a higher power and this connection to something greater than myself that I had always been wanting, that I was that little girl in bed willing to happen. And today, I found it through Alcoholics Anonymous and doing the steps and service. And in the beginning, like when I was first getting sober, I had to pray for the willingness to be willing to believe in a power greater than myself, because I had so much guilt and shame around saying like, God, I'm going to put you on a shelf. But now that my life has been burned to the ground, I need your help. And so I had to find and go through a journey of finding out, what is my higher power? What does that look like? And it's continued to evolve as life's gotten bigger, problems have gotten bigger, expectation. Life just gets bigger because of the really cool things that we get to do here and the way we show up in the world. And I was, probably 5 years sober, and I was having a really tough time, and I was really uncomfortable in my skin. And this woman, she's like, "You need a bigger God." I was like, "What? I can do that?" Right? And she's, "Yeah, you need a bigger God. Your life's really big now. It's bigger than you thought you were ever deserving of having. You need a bigger God." And I've had periods of that in my sobriety where it's like my life just gets bigger, and like my higher power gets to get bigger. And that's what it gets to get bigger today. It's not that it has to, but I know that, like, whatever I'm going through, I'm going to come out the other end with, a deeper connection with my higher power, a bigger higher power, a different relationship with myself in a way. And I know everything's going to be okay. And I've gone through enough tough stuff and come out the other end knowing I'm okay and getting all these gifts from it in, hindsight 2020, right? But I look back and I'm like, wow, these actually good things came from this. And I've done that enough today to know, like, oh, I'm in the middle of something. I know I'm going to be fine. I know I'm going to come out the other end, but man, this sucks right now. And that's okay too. I found this amount of grace for myself and allowing me to just be a human. I just get to be a human today, and that's okay. And I can't screw this up. I can't screw this life thing up. I heard that also early on. It's actually when I was first sponsoring, and my sponsor's like, you can't save them and you can't make them go out. Like, you are just there to take somebody through the steps, show them the tools of what we're done with you, and then you just let them have their journey. I was like, I can't screw them up. I can't break them. I can't save them, and I can't break them. And that was just a little bit more weight off my shoulders of life. And it's those kinds of things, like tonight, because I'm always in my head, like, I want you guys to like me. There's still that piece in there that makes me, I want everybody to like me and think I'm great, right? And I was like, oh, I should plan this whole thing out. I was sitting there, I should meditate on what I'm going to say tonight, all of this. And then I laugh at myself, and I'm like, this isn't about you. This is not about you. You're there to be of service, and also, like, whatever comes out of your mouth is going to be whatever's supposed to come out of your mouth. Like, your higher power will guide you. And I'm like, okay, fine, right? But that's what you've taught me, is like, I have that initial alcoholic voice that's telling me one thing, and then that God, like that second voice, that higher power, that inner self is like, gives me a little bit something different, tells me the truth, and that voice today is bigger than the alcoholic voice. And I found a lot of that in my journey through meditation, because through meditation, like, I find that pause. The more I'm meditating consistently, just that pause between thought and action, it gets longer. I remember when I first experienced that, I'm like, wow, I didn't automatically react. Like, I paused for a second, paused when agitated and doubtful, and asked for the right thought or action. And that was amazing, right? And so all of these things I've gotten when all I wanted to do was not drink. And it's been such an amazing journey. And I'll just wrap up by saying that, like life does get bigger and more challenging. And I went through, like, pandemic, everybody went through an experience, period. And I went through a really tough time of, isolation. Didn't go to a meeting for like a month and didn't even realize it. Like, didn't leave my place for a week at a time. And I was just working in working from home in this cave, and I didn't even see sunlight, right? And for a person who needs sunlight and human interaction and connection, like, I just got into this really dark place and working, ridiculous hours. To a point where it was like, I had you guys telling me, my sponsor calls me and is like, hey, people in your home group miss you. They're worried about you. What's going on? I was like, wow, people would notice that I'm not there. She's like, yeah. And we get to tell each other the truth in this program, because she also got to say lovingly and honestly, and it wasn't what I wanted to hear, but I'm concerned. If you keep this up, like, you could drink again. And I was already romanticizing alcohol and all of that, right? But she tells me what I don't want to hear. And that's what we do for each other. We do it with, like, love and compassion, and from a place with good intentions. Like, I learned today, most people in life, I run around thinking they're doing it with good intentions. I don't always assume the worst anymore. And so, and I ended up taking a leave from work, and I worked on my recovery and my emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. And I got to come out of that with a completely different perspective on life and an understanding of, yet again, what I'm willing and not willing to put up with myself, because today I deserve good. I deserve happiness and a variety of other things that I never thought I would ever say out loud. Because anyway, and you helped walk me through that, right? And that's what we do for each other. And that's what I'm extremely grateful for too. It's like I get to learn how to handle life stuff. Or maybe I don't know how to handle life stuff, but you do, so you can help me on my journey, help me along on my journey. And and I'll just kind of wrap up with saying that, like, regardless of whatever's going on, I do know that, like, I can go back to basics. I can get so spun up and things can get so big in my head, and I can get, whatever year of recovery I have. But in the end, sometimes I just have to go back to the basics. And I get that reminder by going to meetings, because I've very much learned, like, doing service is not a replacement for Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and hearing others share and working my steps and working with my sponsor, etc. And so there's periods of time where I've had to do that too. Started going to a meeting every day for a chunk of time when I, was 6 or 7 years sober, just because I needed to get back to basics. And I know it works, right? I've seen you do it. I've been told what to do. And sometimes, regardless, I just go ahead and start doing it, regardless of what my mind tells me. So I'm grateful to be here tonight. Thanks, Austri, for having me. And yeah, I'm good. Thanks.